Hello and welcome to a conversation today between myself, Suzanne Anderson, and Kim Carpenter. We're going to talk about women on the edge of evolution and what we need to be thinking about and equipping ourselves with as women, really bringing in the new culture, both the inner operating system we need and then how we can translate that into how we show up in the world and the businesses we create and how we are actually leading. So I'll just say a little bit about myself, and then Kim, I'll ask you to introduce yourself. I am a psychologist and a coach, a speaker, a facilitator of transformative processes, and the co-author of the book, The Way of the Mysterial Woman, Upgrading How You Live, Love, and Lead. For the past decades, now many decades, I've been involved in exploring, doing research around leadership in general, leadership in times of transition. And in the last 15 years, I've had a particular focus in my research around what it means for women to wake up right now, a consciousness that's capable of being a match for these complex times, and the leadership capacities that go with that. So that's what really brings me alive, is creating the conditions for women to activate this innate potential that's just waiting to come online now. That's a bit about me. Kim, why don't you introduce yourself?
And I've had the great pleasure of studying with Suzanne and really, cultivating those skills within myself to awaken what's come alive. And for me, I've spent the last 20 years, since 1996 or so, working in marketing, advertising, and digital marketing. I started at the very beginning of the web when companies like Mercedes-Benz were saying, we need websites and we don't really know what those are. And so I've had the privilege of working, in corporate for 9 years, and then running a digital agency in Canada for 3 years, and having my own marketing and business consulting practice for about 12 years now. And my mission is really to empower women to create successful businesses in today's world that make the world a better place, actually. And so many of us have this longing to create positive change in the world, to see things improve for ourselves, our families, our society, our world at large. And the vehicle of business, I feel, is one of the most powerful vehicles for instigating that change, because there is money and power behind business. So I'd love to see us as women being able to generate more businesses and be super successful at it.
Right. Yeah. And I, similarly, as Kim was saying, you're saying you've been doing my work. Well, we actually met almost a year ago now, I think, in fact, when I was getting ready the book had launched. I'd been doing a lot of international speaking, and women around the world wanted to do the work that I was offering, but I only had local retreat-based programs. So Kim and her team, I worked with them to bring myself into the online world and to begin to think about marketing. And the thing I think, if I may just mention, that I think what happened there was you read the book, or you kind of got involved in the material. What's also percolating in you was a sense that maybe the life, the way you were leading it at that time, wasn't 100% congruent for you. And maybe you can tell the rest of the story of what actually happened next.
Yeah, I'd love to tell that story. Yeah, so I started working with Suzanne and engaging with her material, reading the book, and then it really hit me. My body was telling me that I had to stop. And like so many of us who worked, especially I think in the corporate world, going back to that, but it happens in entrepreneurship too, right? Where we just drive, like we're driving and driving and driving ourselves to do more and be more and accomplish more and like be at the table with the men. And, it's like, I feel it in my body. It's like this, like this driving energy. And I had driven myself into the ground. And, you know, the years prior to engaging with Suzanne's work, I was really, I had a business partnership. My father got cancer and passed away. I was one of his major caregivers, living with my parents at that time, with my boyfriend as well. And, you know, I just was trying to do everything and carry everything. And I got adrenal fatigue. I lost my passion. And I had some beautiful friends that called me on it. And they were like, Kim, what's going on with you? Like, your energy is totally dead. You know, what's happening? You're not your normal self that I met like 5 years ago. And so I just took it on that I was making a big change. I sold my house. I ended my relationship. I went to Bali on a sabbatical. And then when I was in Bali, I was able to do Suzanne's course and really create this amazing container for myself to become a new person, to like find a new way of being and living for myself, and especially for my business.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful story, because now, you know, now as you're coming back, you would felt the call to come back and bring this work you're doing with women and helping them create the structures that allow their unique expression to come into the world through business. Now you're coming into that, I sense, from this very different ground of being. So I want to speak a bit about that for a moment, because I think this is key. You know, when I began by saying women are on the edge of evolution, I really mean that. I mean that we are, and I'm not just making this up, this is, I would say, shared by historians and futurists. We would say we are in one of these churn and turn times right now, where an upgrade is required by culture itself, because we've simply created problems that are so complex. We need a consciousness to match them. We know Einstein's famous quote, "We cannot solve the problems of today with the consciousness that created them yesterday." So what does that really mean? That means we have to, I believe, turn on the developmental tap again. Now that's hard when we think we're adults, because we can drive a car, we can have a relationship, we can buy a house, we've developed, we know who we are. But the way I see it is that we have this innate potentiality that's being activated now by evolution itself, calling us forward. And I think women have a particular role in this, because I think one of the aspects that's needed right now in the chemistry of this catalytic time is the feminine, is the deep feminine, actually. Now, this is true for men and women, that we can no longer just run on a masculine operating system, that we actually need feminine capacities to come into balance with the masculine. What I mean by this is, for example, the masculine, more forward, agentic, goal-oriented, structured, analytical, logical, rational, all of these ways of being and doing, which have been ascendant for, we now know, over 5,000 years. That's a long time. And they were very necessary. There's nothing wrong with them. Actually, a lot happened and a lot evolved in culture, you could say. But some of the feminine qualities now of, we could say, care and collaboration and connection and flow and spontaneity and intuition and emotional intelligence and social intelligence and understanding of a field way beyond the individual, all of these capacities are simply needed now. That's evolution. Evolution doesn't just, we don't decide to grow just because it's a good idea. It's like we get pulled into a growth move because we have these capacities are simply needed. So I think of this as we have to upgrade the inner operating system. We're actually shifting from an old code that's installed literally down in the DNA. It's gotten laid down generation after generation. And we are in the sort of frothy moment right now as women of taking responsibility for uninstalling the old code, which means we have to see it, first of all, and then installing a new code, which is more liberating and actually allows for the expression of more of our innate nature. So the two primary initial codes in the developmental pathway that I decoded over years of research. The first one is, and this is a code deep in ourselves, of I am not enough. And probably many of you listening to this will be able to sense in some way the way that resides, the sense of I'm just not enough. Even if you feel, you might overcompensate for your sense of that by becoming more than enough, like you were describing, Kim. Like, then I'm going to become the uber performer. Because underneath, I don't really believe my being has value. And then the second code is I have to do to be of value. I'm really nothing unless I'm doing all the time. So that code, that's the first polarity, I say, between the feminine and the masculine. I am not enough and I have to do to be of value. The liberating code, when it's installed, and I mean really down in the body, not just as an idea in the mind, it is, I am enough just as I am and empowered to do what is mine to do. This is really different, you can imagine, when you're running on this code. And I think this is a good segue, Kim, for you, because what I see happening with so many women, once the old code is uninstalled, they start to wake up to ways in which they've been in the world, like you did yourself, in worlds that actually weren't congruent with who they were on the inside, who they are on the inside. And they created structures and businesses and relationships that really aren't truly representative of what they want and what their greatest gift is to contribute in the world. And so they're starting to leave corporate jobs or be inspired, and women in transition, say, who've been working at home with children. No, I actually want to make a contribution now. There's something I want to offer. But how do we do that? How do we create businesses then that are not just more of the same old code, like rearranging the deck chairs on the sinking Titanic? Right?
Oh, I love that.
We want a new vehicle. It's a new vehicle, vessel that is delivering us into the world, that also really translates in the world. We want to be successful.
Yes.
So let me turn it over to you with those sort of introductory comments, and love to hear your thoughts about all this.
Yeah, and I just love that, and those two things were just so powerful for me specifically. And I see that so prevalent. I would say probably every client that I've ever worked with, there's some inherent, like, I am not enoughness with especially women. And then this either collapsing, right? Like, well, I just give away my power, or overdoing, right? And so this inner operating system is so important. I remember also just saying to myself at one point, like, how can I become the woman that I know I need to be in order to do what I want to do now? And I can't just do it, right? It's not a doing, it's a being and a doing, and this dance that happens. And so I feel like what I help people with is like, really the doing part, but it's like they have to work on themselves. They have to look at how they're being, who they're being, what capacities do they have. And so I see that there is such a danger in creating structures, relationships that is just like, it's not going to go anywhere. It's ultimately going to burn us out, and we lose that beautiful feminine qualities and essences that you're saying the world does need so deeply. We need it. We need it for ourselves, right? And our family, our children need it. Like, I think about my niece and my friend's daughters, and all of the young women, and they're looking at us as the role models. We're like, how do we do this? And I feel like this is our time to step out of the business suit of like, okay, I'm a woman in a man's outfit, acting like a man. And no, we can be powerful. We can be fully women. The world needs us to be that. And we can lead. We can generate businesses. We can generate money, success, whatever that means to you. And we're doing that more and more and more now, right? Like, more women than ever are graduating from university. More women are creating businesses. And yet we're still making less. we're still only generating 3% of the wealth in the world. Right. And it's like, whoa, what is that? So we need, yes, it's a time to come back into a little more balance. Not even come back, for the first time, have balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you are working with, my sense is you're working with women who've already made the commitment to in some way bring their own unique genius into the world in their own businesses. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, and I have lots of resources and friends that work with people who have an idea and maybe want to quit corporate. And, so I welcome if you, to talk to me, because I have so many friends who are coaches and teachers and practitioners in that way. But I really work with people who, you've done it, you know what you want to do, you've felt the calling to do what is yours to do. And now it's really time to create a business out of it, grow a business out of it. Maybe you've been doing it a little bit. I work with a lot of coaches and holistic practitioners and consultants and teachers, people who want to teach something, give something, bring some knowledge and experience, transformational teaching into the world. And so that, it's once you've taken the leap, then other conditions come up, right? Then it's really like, okay, I've taken this leap, but how do I actually charge more, ask for more money, look at how do I create this in a sustainable way so that it's not just, sustainable for me, but also sustainable for my community, my world, the people whose lives I'm touching, how to do that. And that takes that balance of the masculine and the feminine, like you being in your business in a way that's not burning you out, but also having the structures and the systems and the automations in place, right? So that your business is working well, humming along.
Right. That's beautiful. And I put that inside the context of the archetype I call the father archetype, which is the third code in the Mysterial sequence in this developmental pathway for women. And the limiting belief there is, I do not belong. I do not belong. There's no way I can bring my idea into the world. Well, either I try to belong, because this is where the patriarchy really got created inside of this over-emphasis of the father archetype over millennia. Or I say, I can't make a contribution. What can I offer? And one of the sort of, I call this archetype the sobering essence, because it's actually where we have to be willing to be steadfast and create the structures and order and systems that allow us to come into the world and make our contribution. There's the liberating belief here is, when it's all the way down in the body, I am at home in myself and naturally belong. We really see ourselves part of this great fabric of being here on the planet and want to play our part. And I think now more than ever, we have to do this. So it's a tricky one, because in some ways we want to rebel against, and this was what happened in the 60s when this wave that I called maiden wave came in. We wanted to rebel against all of the structures of the patriarchy and say, I don't want anything to do with this. And fair enough, we needed to break some of those down, absolutely, and enter into the territory that had been held hostage by the hypermasculine, by the patriarchy. But that was never meant to be the end. That wasn't like the end. We kind of played it like it was. Like once we got in there, that's fine. But as you said earlier, a lot of us became one of the boys, and we sort of have stopped there. So there's another move to make now, where we accept that we actually need structures. That's the healthy masculine, but we're liberated from trying to show up like one of the boys in the old game. And if someone the client yesterday actually talked about being in a meeting. She was running, and she's in one of my depth programs, and she had first of all dressed very conservatively. She's in a European corporation and was used to performing in that way and showing up in that way. And in this meeting, first of all, she wore clothes that were checked pants and kind of a lot of color and flair. She was starting to get her inner and outer more congruent. And then in the meeting she was holding, she actually took time. Usually people just pulled up chairs in the old random way to the table to do their thing. And she actually created order and harmony and put something beautiful on the table. So she was actually being efficient. She still had things to accomplish in the meeting, but she was doing them now in a way that were actually had more of her showing up. And as it turned out, the meeting was very effective. People commented on how beautiful the table was. There was a kind of harmony in the conversation that wasn't there when they all just sort of randomly showed up and started talking. So this, to me, these are the examples of how we start to weave together the masculine and feminine. It sounds like that's part of what you're helping women do, is like, we need structures.
Yes, exactly. We need structures, and yeah, we can't throw them out. And I talk to clients every day who are learning about business principles, right? Digital marketing is huge now, right? Like, we need to be marketing online. We need to be looking at least at social media and how it can help us, Facebook, LinkedIn. And yet the people they're learning from are doing it in a way. So it's not the structure that's bad. It's not that, Facebook advertising or, social media marketing or content marketing is bad, but it's the way that people are doing it. It's not fitting for these women. And they're like, I want to do this because I want to make money and I want to get clients, but it feels so gross. Like, how can I do this? So a big part of what I do is really help simplify and bring understanding to the structural part of it. And then how do you bring your essence forward, right? So you can call that your brand, you can call that your offerings, but it's that beautiful feminine quality and the authenticity and the transparency that, is so big right now. And women are talking about it, right? Like, how do you tell the truth? Right? So it's not manipulative. It's not playing on people's fears, right? That's the kind of stuff that just feels so gross. But it's like, so what I'm teaching a lot about these days is like, just say, hey, I'm going to do a webinar. I'm teaching you some stuff. And then I'm going to let you know how you can work with me if you're interested in that. I'd love to talk to you. Right. So it's just like, oh, right? Or here's this freebie, you're going to opt into my email list, right? I'm going to send you some stuff after. If you don't want it, just unsubscribe.
Right.
So It's like, we're not trying to trick people or manipulate them into things. We're just, here's what I have. And I love that word offering, right? Like it's an offering. I'm putting it at your feet lovingly. I'm showing you, here's something that might be great for you that I have. And if you would like to receive that offering, fine. And if not, that's okay too.
Great. Well, I'm hoping that just in this little tincture conversation we're having, that any of you that are listening and that are feeling yourselves, let's say, waking up this innate capacity inside that you sense as a match for the times. You're not exactly sure how to keep awakening this on the inner level or how to bring it into the world on the outer level. I hope that you're getting encouraged by Kim and me as we share that actually what you're sensing is evolution's call. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It isn't very comfortable, I'll agree with that, but it's all of a sudden putting discomfort inside the context of growth pain, that we're actually midwifing ourselves, because we're in the midwifing of ourselves, and this next version of ourselves I call mysterial, as a word to describe this new way of being in the world. This is how we actually midwife the new culture. So we're being called forward, not just for our own fulfillment, but actually, in my sense, for the many generations that will come after us who might be thanking us for the courageous steps we've taken now. So Kim, do you want to just say how people could get a hold of you if they want to have a further conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And just know that, we're both, Suzanne and I, wanting to engage in conversation with people. And I know that it can feel confusing and lonely and uncomfortable, like Suzanne was just saying, a birthing process. I'm feeling squeezed, So the best way to reach me is probably by my website, which is kimcarpenter.net. mcarpenter.net. There's a contact form on there. And if you also want to email me directly, it's kimc@kimcarpenter.net. You can also find me on Facebook. under Kim Carpenter. So I would love to connect with you and just get the conversation started. It's going to take all of us to be in this conversation together to shift things, to bring in the new evolutionary phase.
Absolutely. Great. And those of you that would like to be engaged in the conversation with me and the work that's, I would say, my accelerator, my developmental accelerator, mysterialwoman.com is my website. That's Mysterial, Mysterial. Also the book, The Way of the Mysterial Woman, Upgrading How You Live, Love, and Lead, which I'm excited to say is a triple award-winning book now. It's been written in a way that with practices and ways that you can actually get started right now with awakening this new code. So you can get that on Amazon. And on Facebook, I have a group called Mysterial Woman, which I'd love you to join and come into the conversation we're having there about what's involved in this process of waking up, growing up, and ultimately showing up more fully. So
beautiful.
Thank you very much, Kim, and thank you all for listening in.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you out there. Bye.